Welcome to another episode of Solo Sessions with me, your host, Ben Canute. And I am fired up today. It's race week. Early on in the week, full transparency. So it's not like I'm right before the race with full on nerves or the anticipation before the start. But it's starting. We got some rest going on. I'm feeling good. I got some coffee in me. So it's time to talk. And I don't know how long this one is going to go. I've said that probably every episode, so maybe I should stop. Last one I think was about the length that I wanted, but with it being race week, I could get off and just keep yammering on forever and ever. Or it's going to be this real quick, I talk real fast, you're in and out, quickly, got all the information you need, done. But anyways, race week, travel, nothing, I don't think, well, I shouldn't say nothing more stressful than travel, but travel always is stressful. It just seems to always feel like you're forgetting something. And as triathletes, we have a lot of stuff. And I'm only traveling solo this time, so this is the easiest type of travel. When you travel with a family and you have two kids, oh my gosh, does the stuff just absolutely multiply. I thought triathletes had a lot of things, but when you bring a kid along with all the stuff they need for sleeping, during the day, extra outfits. It's basically like you're taking another triathlete on the trip with you. Granted, we have the biggest thing, which is the bike. But yeah, again, traveling solo. Got a few races, few 70.3s coming up. That'll be basically just strictly business trips before the World Champs in September. In November is the 70.3 World Championships, which is the main focus, and that's bringing the whole crew along. So I will get into that as we approach. But for this weekend, Louisville 70.3, just going solo. Real quick trip, strictly business. Get in, perform, get out. Maybe qualify and secure a spot for that 2026 70.3 World Championships. But back to travel. I always feel like the worst part of travel is from your door until you check in your bike or bags if you've got to check a bag. It's just something stressful about it. I'm packing pretty much throughout the week. I'm one of those guys that might pack pretty early, throw a bunch of stuff in the suitcase, forget what I packed for a few days and stop packing, and then last minute throw a bunch of stuff in and overpack in some areas, underpack in others. Have a list even to go through all the triathlon stuff I need, run through the race, but you always leave the house feeling like something is missing. I don't care how meticulous I was in the week leading up. I always feel like I'm just don't quite have it all. And more often than not, there is a small piece that is missing to the puzzle. As long as though you got the basics. And as a triathlete, this is what you should do. You should always pack a backpack with your essentials. And I'm not talking just snacks for the plane. Snacks are essential, but that can always be picked up later. What I'm talking about are your goggles, your race suit, potentially your swim skin or wetsuit, depending on how big your backpack is, your pedals and bike shoes, and then your run shoes. And pretty much everything else can be replaced. I would also say your cycling, computer, watch, those sorts of things. But as long as you have those essentials, along with the bike helmet, see, I'm forgetting things on the list already. As long as you have those essentials, you should be good to go. Obviously, if your bike doesn't show up, that's a really tricky situation, but you got your bike shoes and your pedals. Somebody could give you a bike that's 3 sizes too small, and you can still hop on that thing like Jens Voigt and ride that race, probably very painfully, but you could still get to the start line. So if you can have those essentials packed away, then you're good. And I might be missing a few off the top of my head, but basically whatever the bare minimum is that you can't pick up in the expo. And I am pretty particular about my race nutrition, so I would like to pack that. But when you're packing powders in your backpack or in your bike box, it just starts to get a bit tricky, I think, to carry it on sometimes. So those can technically be replaced. You could race on all Coke if you wanted. It wouldn't be ideal. It's no Good Life nutrition, but you could race on Coke if you just wanted to. So pack that backpack, make sure you have your essentials, and you're on your way to the airport. You get everything else packed. It's always a whirlwind. Packing the bike, as easy as it is with the bike case I have, you still got to fit everything in the box. I have a super hefty hard case that really protects the bike, but it's hard to put in anything extra because it weighs so much. So I'm always playing with that, and I fly one airline for the most part, only because I have a little bit of status and it lets me go up to 70 some pounds, so I can kind of get away with overloading it. But otherwise, you're trying to get it under 50, even if you're going to pay the bike fee. It just, in the back of your mind, you're probably going to the airport. You know the bike rules better than almost any employee at the front desk, so you're half prepared to argue with them. And my tip is always kill them with kindness. You go in, ask how their day's going, big smile on your face, say you're doing great, and start off very nice, because people are always willing to cut you some slack if you're nice, versus if you go in on the defensive, ready to fight with somebody knowing, no, my bike is supposed to be $50 cheaper, and have had a couple bike fees waived because of being nice and them not quite knowing the rules. So you kind of skate by and they just want to get you out the door onto the next person, keep doing their job. But it's that, I think, the anticipation of some of that going to the airport. Plus, I think there's just some trauma you pick up from the airports when you travel enough, where if you have bad experiences, they stick with you, and you're one of two people going to the airport. You're somebody who does all this planning beforehand, of course, with the packing, with the bike, get everything set, car loaded, and you're on your way to the airport with plenty of extra time because you'd rather be sitting by your gate doing whatever than stressing about missing your flight. Or you're the person who has it timed out to the exact minute to show up, check all your stuff, get through security, and walk straight onto the plane. And I don't feel like there's much middle room. You're either getting there super early or you're on the verge of missing your flight. And I am 100% somebody who would rather leave 30 minutes early, get there, get settled, and just hang out. You're traveling for a few hours anyways. What's an extra 30 minutes? And it's way better than potentially missing your flight, because sometimes things just happen. As much as you may know your local airport, and you get to know it pretty well when you're traveling as a professional triathlete, and you might have, the security always takes 10 minutes, or it'll take 25, or gate check-in, nobody's ever there. All it takes is that one time for some weird event to be going on the same time you want to leave to your race. And if you've left it till the last minute to show up and all of this stuff happens, you show up late to the airport, you're getting into the race, cutting it close there, one little thing in the chain, and then you don't even make the start. So I just take that variable out and I show up extra early, because I've had it where you show up and all of a sudden there's a line around the airport, whether it's to check your bike, because you can't just walk straight through TSA like you would if you're traveling for normal business. And you dream about those days when you're dragging your big bike box through the airport, dodging people, dragging it. It's going the wrong direction. You're kind of dragging it. It's just this huge thing that could probably take out 2 or 3 people at the same time, and just knowing that you're going to have to wait for it on the other end. It's so nice when you get to travel with just a backpack and a carry-on, or even just a backpack. What a treat. Makes travel so much easier. But I digress a little bit. But it could be the gate check. That's a lot. Or it could be security. You never know with security nowadays. TSA pre-check. I fly out of Denver now. In Phoenix, 5-10 minutes, pretty consistently, unless they would shut down a couple TSA checkpoints, and then you could be screwed. And we definitely had that before. But with Denver, I feel like everybody and their mother is on TSA pre-check. And it almost doesn't matter sometimes. They got a bunch of different people checking and putting you through, but it could still be a huge line. And all it takes is just a random grouping of people to show up, slow that whole line down, and you're missing your flight. So I have been that person too, who walks up confident, ready to go home. I changed my trip around because wanted to get back home earlier, or you book your tickets in advance and try and plan everything out, but show up, hand the gate agent or the check-in agent your number, your last name, your passport, whatever it is, and they ask you again, do you have a confirmation number that we could check this at? And you go, yeah, of course I do. And you're a little bit annoyed. You're like, how dare they not find my reservation right away? And then you look at your reservation and it's a completely different month from what you're supposed to be flying. It's a month from that day. And then you start to panic and go, son of a gun, what's the change fee going to be? Is there even a seat open on the flight? Your stomach drops to the floor. And in my situation, at least it was okay, but hate that. That's the worst. You book so many flights, you get confident, you click through fast, you're distracted doing something else, messes up your entire day sometimes. And for all you people out there who are the opposite of me, who leave it to the last minute, just got to know your 30 to 45 minute window check-in, whether you're flying domestic or international, because they won't take your bag. And I've definitely fallen victim to that, where I missed it by literally 30 seconds. The computer logs them out. Doesn't matter how much you beg the person, how much you plead and apologize and try and fix it. It's done. They can't even fix it at all. So I have many. I'll tell one more. It's about the bike, because it's always about the bike, right? Whether it gets lost or there's some sort of weird thing that happens. It could be a bag, but it's rarely the airport itself. That's just a weird happenstance. Sometimes it does, depending on which airport you're going into. But the craziest bike story, maybe not crazy, but the most frustrating one that almost ended super bad, was flying home from Finland. I was gone in Singapore, then I went straight to Finland, and I was sick for that trip. I didn't race well at either race and just wanted to get home. In Europe, sometimes you have to book the bike on the plane. They're much more strict about that than they are in the US. So this is definitely a pro tip for anybody who's flying, particularly a European airline, or if you're flying within Europe or Europe to the US. Whatever it is, doesn't matter what you do going out of the US, 9 times out of 10, they have space for the bike. You're okay. Maybe if you're flying Lufthansa or another European airline, double check, because Lufthansa is the worst. I've had this happen multiple times with Lufthansa, just in trying to save space for the bike. If you're flying in the US, I would say almost never. They might charge you $500 if they feel like it to ship a bike on the plane with you to get there at your destination. But Europe, you have to reserve it ahead. And I had ran into this before, and it was earlier that year flying out of Roth. I had a bike not be allowed on the plane because they downsized the plane, said there wasn't enough room, and the fact that I didn't check it, they didn't like. So I was sitting there arguing forever with them about that. So I should have known better, because later that year, I'm flying out of Finland, flying Icelandair to Iceland, then connecting into the US. And this is not to, bad talk any of these airlines. I didn't pay enough attention to the rules. And I should have booked it and confirmed that I had a bike, but I just figured I'll deal with it at the airport. It's fine. We'll handle it there. Well, Finland, it was such a small airport flying out of there in Helsinki, even though it's an international airport. Icelandair doesn't stock people there. They don't have, it's a third party, airport desk agents that they kind of hop to the places that need to be filled in at. So that's pretty common too, but they don't have as much access to the back end. So they couldn't book bikes on the plane. And there were at least a handful of us who had not booked the bike ahead. And we could call in, but they couldn't change it calling in. And so we were going to be stuck. I was going to have to find a hotel. I just returned my rental car. We're going to have to find a hotel, rebook all the flights. It's going to cost whatever, $1,500 probably to just get back home. Totally deflating, particularly after a bad race. But somebody found a loophole, and they chatted on the help center, just on the computer chat, and they were able to get a link to book the bike for the flight, pay the fee, and go, because they couldn't accept, that was the main issue, I think, is they couldn't accept payment. So then we were able to go do a workaround that way and just barely make our flight. So that was kind of the craziest, but it's just those little moments that start to make you arrive at the airport sooner and sooner and leave yourself extra time for who knows what to delay your trip. So I think I've talked out the travel trips for the moment, but let's get back to race week. Race week is a love-hate relationship. Mostly love, but there's a little bit of hate. I love racing. This is why I do triathlon. We always talk about the process. You got to enjoy the day to day. But I would say for all of us, it's to get to the start line and show off what you've been doing and express it. You don't get to go as deep in practice as you do in a race. Practice is pretty structured a lot of times. You're not always racing, so you don't get to, I guess, flex on each other, on yourself. You got to show some restraint. There's some to that to racing, but mainly you want to finish completely empty, crawling right after you finish the race. Cross that finish line, just collapse. That's the ideal race if you can squeeze everything out of it. So it's just the hype around it. The racing head to head is fun. You get to see people you race against multiple times or meet new people. There is some camaraderie with the pro field depending on where you're going to, but everybody who I race against is a pretty good person and get along with. So it's just exciting. I don't know, there's some hype around it. I've always loved a good race. So that part is good. You're focused. You have a clear goal. You go through the process of what are my process goals for this race? How do I want to race it? How am I going to execute the swim, bike, and run to cross that finish line first? There's some racecraft that goes into it too, trying to guess how are other people going to affect the race? Do I respond to somebody's attack? Do I not? It's just this whole dance and kind of art piece that happens as you're planning a race. And as you get into it, like the best part, it gets there's kind of this weird hump for race week. I feel like a roller coaster where beginning of the week, you're feeling good or could be just working through, you're getting more rest, you have a little bit more time on your hands. But then as the race comes along, you start to hate that you have extra time because there's more time to think about it. You can feel the nerves, the excitement coming on, and it builds all the way up until the gun goes off. And there's a few different things. First off, taper is both amazing and terrible at the same time. We used to call it the taper blues. You are used to doing all this hard work, filling up your day. You imagine that when I taper, I'm going to feel so good and so great. And sometimes you do. But there's a lot of times where you go through taper and your body absolutely hates you. It starts rebelling. The paces start feeling hard, or the effort you're putting out is right where it should be, or a little bit harder, but the paces are coming and it's just checking off boxes. And I think a lot of how you feel in taper week can be with expectations. And it just doesn't matter. Feeling doesn't matter in taper week. We always search for, I need to be on the start line feeling my absolute best. But that's just not the case. There's so many times where you could feel absolutely terrible the whole week and feel good on race day, or even feel bad during the race like you did in taper, but you're still hitting the paces and you're just accepting the fact that, okay, this is one of those days. I'm hitting solid stuff. I'm not feeling great, but I'm getting through it. And I feel like the goal, especially when I've talked to my coaches about this, is to feel like you're jumping out of your skin. That's the type of rest that you want, to be chomping at the bit, ready to just explode on the start line. And a lot of times you can achieve, I think you can only really achieve a full taper maybe 2 or 3 times a year max, because it's hard to continue to peak throughout the whole year. So you are looking for this gradual build throughout the year with these mini tapers or rest periods going into races to try and feel better and perform, but also not blow the chance at tapering fully for a world championship and hitting that next level. So with the taper and how you go through it, I think that it is just this interesting dance of checking boxes, not having too much expectations, and getting yourself to the start line, and also not doing anything silly and hurting yourself before the race, because you got to get to the start line if you want a chance. It's the famous quote of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Well, if you don't make it to the start line, you don't have an opportunity to win, because we all think from the sidelines we can do X, Y, or Z. But unless you're there starting the race and giving yourself that opportunity, then you aren't like giving yourself that chance to do anything. And while you have all of these, I guess, taper blues feelings potentially, because I'm focusing a bit on that aspect just because it's something that people don't expect, particularly in the case of if you haven't done it very much. You always expect to feel really good when you rest. And honestly, the body has gotten used to doing all the hard workouts, and then all of a sudden you're taking that away. You're taking away its normal. So you're potentially might not feel great at all. And you got to find a way to get back to it, kind of shock the body back into it, rest, recover. And I think my always thing for taper is it's not always the physical that's the hardest part, because you go through sections of time in your training even where you feel good, you don't feel good, but you're pretty practiced at hitting the paces you're supposed to hit. So okay, as long as I'm doing the work, I'm okay. Sometimes the hardest part is the mindset of everything going into a taper. If you have expectations of what it should feel like, or, hey, I really should be resting right now. And I find, okay, I'm really good at cutting back and putting my feet up, saying this is good for me. I'm recovering right now and I'm resting, and that's all I want to do. But then you got to go out and you still have to work somewhat hard during taper week. You're not taking it completely off, because then you'll go to the start line and you'll be flat. You haven't worked out for a week and you'll just feel terrible because of doing too much rest versus not enough. So I think that's the balance, then the dance that you play with mentally of, I have to be able to turn off the brain, not worry about the race, not overthink it, recharge. But then when it's time to practice and train, you really got to step it up and you got to flip that switch again. And in general, that's what you got to do on race day too, because let's be real. Our races for half Ironman and Ironman, you're waking up at a time where you just don't feel good at all. My wake up time for races, and I guess we can talk a little bit about the race week itself, is always basically in the middle of the night. It's a 3 a.m., maybe a bit before wake up call, because I wake up 4 hours before the start of the race. And it just seems to be trending that races start earlier and earlier. You start at 6:30, 6:15, 6:45. Every so often you get a 7 or 7:15, 7:30 start. But if it's that early, you just got to be able to, you wake up the night before the sleep, that sleep doesn't matter. It's the 2 nights before that really does. So, but it's, I think rarely you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning going, I feel so good right now. I'm ready to smash this. Takes a little bit. Got to get yourself warmed up. Got to get your mind wrapped around it. And I talked with the taper blues, with not feeling good during taper or feeling really good. I think there's this part of taper where the workouts start to look the same as they did before the last race for a reason. You start to fall into the routine, especially as you get closer to the race. I talked about how nerves and excitement start to build up, and I talk a lot about this with my mental coach. We talk a lot about the mental side of the sport and what you can do to put yourself in the best position to race well. And one of those things is that nerves and excitement feels the same exact way. It's just how you tell yourself you're feeling. That nervous feeling you get in your stomach is really excitement. You're excited to get to the start line, to show it. You care about it, and you're really pumped to get there to show off all the work you did. And I think we spend a lot of time thinking about racing and thinking about doing something maybe we've never done before. But when it comes down to it, you're looking to execute. And there is some of that transcendental racing beyond what you're capable of that everybody searches for. Those are great, but that's not every time you race. You got to race how you practice. You train a certain way so you can race a certain way. And while that's not this exact pinpoint out in space, it's this range, okay, I've done all this work, so I can execute this way. And I have some freedom to, if I feel really good, take a risk. And if I feel really bad, just try and get myself up to the bottom end of that zone or do what I can on the day. But before we get into kind of all of that philosophy of racing, just as you lead into the race, because this is race week, like I said, you have more energy, you have more time on your hands. And I feel like triathlon in general, and this probably goes for all sports, but us in particular, we think a lot. We think about how we train, how we take nutrition. We want things to be a certain way. And I think as you go into the race week, as you get closer to the race, you got to fall back on routine. You got to have a routine in the couple days leading in. You always do maybe a swim, bike, run. You prep your bottles at a certain time. You go to bed. You write in your journal. You take some time to focus on the race and visualize it. Or you go out and you eat a certain meal. And particularly on race day, I really have a routine. I wake up very similar time, eat at a similar time, eat the same thing, drink the same things, go through a very similar warm-up routine going in. I just keep checking boxes. And that's what race week is about. You check boxes to get yourself to the start line. Don't overthink it. Don't do anything fancy race week. That's the number one rule, is don't do anything new. And just go to your checklist of, what do I have to do to be prepared? And obviously it's life. There's stuff that's going to happen. But you get to the start line. The gun goes off. And then again, it basically is routine there. Because all you want to do is just shut your brain off and race. That's the most important thing I think you can do to race well, is don't think, just do. I'm stealing that quote from Top Gun Maverick. Lots of good takeaways from Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick, but that's probably one of the best ones, is don't think, just do. You spent all this time training, you tapered, and your body's ready. You don't have to overthink things. And I think that's in particular with me, and I'll speak just about myself now, is you don't want to overanalyze while you're racing. If you're thinking too much about form, you're thinking too much about how the race should or shouldn't have gone or go, and it takes you out of that moment. And we need to stay in the moment to be able to hit the flow state. And the flow state, I think everybody probably has an idea for what the flow state is, but it's that state where time both slows down and speeds up. The pace becomes easier, and you're only focused on the task at hand. And it's when people describe it as clicking, or I blacked out during the race. I don't even remember that aspect to it. Or it just felt easy. The pace, everything came to me very naturally. And that happens when you're so immersed in a task that you just get lost in it. And that's hard to accomplish in practice and in racing, but you start to get better at it, and that's what you start to search for in every single race. So that if your mind starts to wander to, oh, this is so hard, or, oh, I need to be doing this, or I'm focused, this person I didn't expect to be here, it takes you out of that flow state. So my goal is always, how can I get to that flow state the fastest? Because when things just click and you have the rhythm of the swim, bike, and run, it just comes a lot easier. And I find that is one of my favorite things about sport. I've said before, I love watching people who are good at what they do and make things look easy. And when you're in that state, that's as close as you can get to that sort of thing for whatever skill level you're at. When all of that, just the outside noise kind of fades away, you're aware but unaware, and you're racing, it's a beautiful thing. And, I'm in a point in the year, I've had glimpses of it, of those races where I've put it all together, but it's been a while since I've just fully executed and been fired up about it. My last 3 races haven't really been like that. I'd say Oceanside was pretty close. I felt like I squeezed a lot out of that race and was present and racing, and you even surprise yourself sometimes, like with the fitness you have going in. So I'm searching for that this race. These 70.3s coming up are about execution for me. I want to go out. Goal is always to win. I don't really care who's on the start line. That's who I am. It's what I believe. I'm delusional enough. I believe enough. I'm insane enough to say it. However you want to label it. There might be some people who are listening who go, well, who are you to think you can beat X, Y, or Z? Look how they raced. And I kind of go, if you don't think that way, you don't believe, what are you doing? I'm here to try and win world championships. It may never happen, and it may. I don't know. I can't tell the future. But I know I'm doing everything I can to try and execute and do that. And these next 70.3, starting with our 70.3 Louisville, are all about executing, practicing racecraft, fighting for the win, and getting the most out of myself and just having a complete race. I'm racing in the heat, racing on some decently challenging courses, and just not necessarily worrying about what anybody else is doing. Sometimes in these big world championships, you get caught up in pack dynamics, who's pushing, who's going to run fast, who on paper is good, and all of that is just noise. For me, not qualifying for Nice, it's opened up a different type of door to refocus, reset, try and go on a bit of a redemption tour. Because I don't think it's a surprise to anybody if I say this, but the past 3 races have not been good, not result-wise at all. And even execution-wise, just hasn't been where I wanted them to be. So I feel fit. I feel ready. I'm excited to race. Never been to Louisville before. And I'm looking forward to getting to a start line and practicing all of that execution and all of the little details. I feel like I've been doing that actually very well this year in the lead up to the race. And even in the race, there have been a lot of positives in doing that execution. However, I think when things start to go really south, particularly physically, the mind sometimes follows. And even still, finishing Frankfurt, that felt that the mind was not probably in a great place, but the body was in a worse place. When you're running your last few miles at 8:30 pace, in a lot of pain, not being able to push any harder, I could technically have kept going, I guess. That's the mind over matter, but to push yourself and get that physical side going, that was a little bit different. So different spot now. Excited to rip it. I think racing is just, I find it sometimes hard to describe, and this is where maybe I'm going off a little bit, but I feel like racing is kind of like painting on a canvas. Sometimes you know exactly how it should look, and you have this vision and you paint it and it shows up and it's everything you thought it would be. And other times the paint doesn't sit right. It doesn't go on the canvas how you thought, but it still ends up being a beautiful painting, portrait, whatever. Or it could be abstract. It could be whatever you want it to be. And I just think athletic performance, and in particular triathlon, you really have that opportunity to create some art. And it's gritty, it's raw, there's going to be a lot of suffering, and you just embrace it. And you come up with some pretty great war stories afterwards, because whether you win or lose, execute or not, You're still out there pushing yourself, trying to accomplish something, going after your goals. And that's an awesome thing. So, I'm just a racer at heart. And that's what got me into trouble this year is I'm a racer. I want to win it all. And sometimes I get ahead of myself with that. So I can't imagine sometimes doing this sport without the reward of racing. I do love being in a place that's beautiful to train in, and I love going on adventures, but my adventures would probably look a little bit different than a 3 or 4 hour ride with VO2 intervals and these specific things that need to be done. I look at mountains and want to go climb those. And that to me is very similar to a race. You got to process a start and a finish line, and you're going to do it as fast as you can or go as hard as you can, challenge yourself, push yourself. But to me, I've always been so competitive, and the racing just brings that out. And I've been thinking about this a little bit too. Because one, I love racing people on the start line, and I love burying people, and I love beating people. I love getting the most out of myself though, and other people help do that to you. But I did listen to Joe Skipper and Taylor Knibb talking, and one of the things I really enjoyed from Taylor was her talking about racing the people who aren't even on the start line, who might be there at the World Champs or might be there at another race. And I definitely think that has been a part of some of what I've done, but I just thought that was really a cool way to articulate, like you're racing the ghosts of them out on that course and what maybe they're capable of. And I just thought that was really kind of cool. And you see that in some of the most dominant performances where they could jog it in and not really keep pushing to the line, but they still do that because it's not just about winning. It's about causing doubt for everybody else, pushing yourself to the limit, and just really getting the most out of it. So I just thought that was one kind of last little cool thing about racing. But we're going out there. I'm not going to really talk about the race strategy right now. And I don't know if I really want this podcast to be a full-on race report thing. I do a lot of YouTube videos that goes over what I thought about the race, my race recaps, shows some cinematic videos of it or just some rough iPhone videos. It has the whole spectrum of that thing. But I think talking about the philosophy, the mental side, some of those other details that take a little bit more time to go through and talk about rather than just what happened in the race. That might be something that I go on. Maybe I'll let some of my strategy go for how I approach this race, just on the off chance that one of the guys I'm racing is listening to this, which might be very small, but the element of surprise or how I go about doing things, it's always nice to have that in your back pocket of people not really knowing where you are, where you're going to go, how you're going to do it. And maybe my racing style is or isn't predictable, but I'm just going to keep those cards close to the chest and maybe talk about them a little bit later. So I think I've covered enough. The travel stories, race week, taper blues, just mindset racing. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm pretty fired up. I think that this week is going to be great. Weekend's going to be even more fun. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. We have a funny way of going out and chasing fun. And in the moment, maybe I won't be having fun at certain times, but we're going to strive for it. And I'm going to go out and really try and hit that flow state this weekend because I just miss being in that rhythm all the time. And when it gets grindy and when it gets hard, sometimes it's that fine line of just flipping that switch mentally. So obviously going to give it my all for you guys who listened to the whole thing. Hope you enjoyed it. First race week edition. And I'll see you guys on the other side of the race. So thanks again. And that's it for today's episode.